What's up, YouTube? It's BigDubz, and we're back with the second part of the Mudrunner Editor tutorial. And I was just picking up where I left off, and hopefully I didn't close the map. If you're following along directly, uh, for those of you that did close your map, for some reason you closed the editor. I'll just go ahead and close the editor. Oh, look at there. Alright. So, it's going to ask you if you want to save your changes. If you hit no, it's your map's gone. You didn't save anything. Just go in, go back to the front of the video, or not the front of the video, the part where I created the new terrain, and you'll basically be back to the same spot that we're in. If you did hit yes and you closed it, not a big deal. Just fire it back up again. And it will remember everything that you had open and kind of leave you kind of where you left off at. And in pre-build, you won't have all this other stuff. Like I said, these are all mine. You should notice your new level name here. And what you want to do is if you want to open it up again to work on it, you will double click on that level. I said this was a normal error. Actually, this is probably something to do with my custom models. And it can't find it. So you probably won't see this error. But you notice I didn't get the second error about the STG file now. Because it knows that that STG file is in the file structure over on the left-hand side. But we are back now at the same point. Hopefully, those of you that closed it, for those of you that left it open, we should be at the same place. So you probably don't see that. So yet. Because those of you that didn't close it, you probably are seeing just seen. Those of you that closed it and then reopened it again, you're going to be seeing all the file structure on the right hand side, or scene view, basically. So those of you that just opened up the level, if you'll click over here, you will see probably you have terrain is open. If you click on the plus sign, guys, these little subcategories will open up for you. So same thing with like geometry. If I click on the plus sign, it's basically going to open up your tool, and the grid. It'll turn them like a grid view for you. But anyway, I'm not going to go through all those. I'm going to explain these first. Scene doesn't really have anything, but terrain, there's some options. If you actually click on terrain, this is like the main settings, I guess, overall for the map. The only really option you have is this is the number size of blocks, but you have this one option that I've noticed, and basically you could just set it as default, which is default settings, but there is a mode to set it for autumn. So if you wanted the seasons to be changed. You can set it for autumn, or you can kind of completely change a lot of aspects if you set it to USA, because primarily it's set to Russian themed, because the creators are from Russia. So there's his first. But you have some other options. You got the autumn theme and you got the USA theme. I won't turn these on just yet because there's not going to make any point. It's just dirt right now. You're not going to really see any changes. Dirt is dirt. It all looks the same. So no matter what mode. More or less, this changes like your shrubs and like your trees settings and like your grass. And what your top of your grass looks like. So, back up to terrain. That's just terrain. Geometry is geometry. It basically allows you to lower or heighten the land. And basically, it's got like brush sizes in here. So, the size of your brush stroke is the circle down here that you see. And if I turn this up, it gets huger. If I turn it down, it gets smaller. Alright. 6 is default size, I believe. But just to go ahead and give you a heads up, scaling is a lot different than what you think. Just because you think something is a certain size in real life doesn't mean that it transfers over into the editor that way. Same thing about the editor, scaling doesn't transfer over into the game the same way. So be careful on your scaling and like your size of things. And this is for anything in general for the game, no matter what you're doing. Typically, the common size of a truck road is 3.0. I've found for the game. Nix gave me that tip in his video. I'll give you that tip as well. 3.0 is the size of any kind of road structure. I've noticed. So, also there's another slider is the value, and that is the right hand side is to raise the land, and the left hand side is to lower the land, basically. And you'll see it's dark for lowering, and it is red for, turn my brush size up, for heightening the land. And you can see all the little blocks that we were talking about, meaning that, you know, it's so many blocks this size this way and so many blocks this way. And that's, you know, basically the grid that it's talking about. Geometry also has a couple of other subcategories as well underneath it. Oh, sorry, I was also explaining this box here. Left and right is value size. Auto fade is not something I use quite often. It kind of like fades your terrain. It's on its own. So I'm not a big fan of auto fade. I don't use it often. Then you'll also have these options over here, heighten and flatten, and they do just exactly what they say. And then you have undo all changes box here, and you'll have backups. Backups is, I think you can actually load a backup of, like, I made a huge load of terrain changes, and it keeps a backup of it. I don't get into it very much. Occasionally I do. You do the undo all, like I just like made something terribly deep, and I'm like, I don't really like all that. I'll just do undo all, but be careful with doing the undo all, because it's not necessarily something that you want to use all the time. Because you might like some of the changes, and you hit undo all, it'll undo it all. So, I'm going to close that brush out. If you ever close it out and you want to get the brush again, just click off of geometry and click on terrain and then click back on geometry. So um, tinting is basically tinting, and the same concept always is a slider on the top is going to be your brush stroke size, and the slider on the bottom is going to be the value of the intensity of it, basically. For heightening land, you know, it's to the right is heightened, to the left is lower. So same thing. To the right is the more tint I want to apply to something, and to the left is less tint that I want to apply to something. So, checking my time. And I can show you real quick that if I go over here and apply some tinting, I get like a greenish or like a weird colored dirt, honestly. So that's just tinting. If I tone it back, I come out over here. Oh, by the way, to do the actual brush stroke, it is the right mouse button to actually apply the stroke. So like I'm holding down the right mouse button to apply these like brush strokes right now. So and you kind of just paint where you want to paint. And then if you click off of it, it will click off, and it basically clicks off, and it applies those changes. So to erase something, literally set something to 0 and whoop, tint. Sorry. See, also be careful about what you pick. And you've seen me use the undo changes, and you think it's not doing anything. You're like, oh, it's still left on my map. It's not really. When I click off, it'll be gone. So, mud is actually mud. I'll get to mud here in a minute. The tab is just mud. Water is water. We'll go over water when we actually use water. The next one is materials. And I'll come back to these. I just kind of want to go over them real quick because my time is getting there, because I want to try to keep these around 30 minutes apiece. So anyway, locators, we haven't added anything. Models, we haven't added anything. These are exactly what they are. Plants is plants. Distributions is basically, distribution is how you add plants. You're like looking at this level right now and you're like, okay, I see dirt, and you know, I don't see anything else. You know, how am I going to add, you know, all these plants and like all this stuff that everybody sees when the finished product? And that is done mostly by distributions. Plants is like literally you place a single plant at a time. So you're thinking like, oh my god, I got to plant like all these plants out here. No, you use distributions to cover up a lot of your land lay, hide things, stuff like that. Overlays are like you can add like a dirt road, and there's two ways to make roads. I'll show you both ways. But most people would say overlays has got like their pre-built roads pretty much in it. A lot of trail guys, like trail map creators, they don't use overlays to create their trails. They most of the time use material to create it. But I've seen people use overlays as well. Overlays also includes like cliffs and things like that. Um, so it's got some other items in there. There's like some wires, pole wires, like telephone pole wires, stuff like that. Sorry, electricity pole wires. I don't know why I said telephone pole wires. It's not freaking the old days. Um, but there's other items like that in there, and basically what you do is there a point system, and you start at point 0 and you lay it out like in a like kind of stretch it out, and it kind of like goes along the train. We'll get into it. We'll see them. References. References are those little XML files that's in the pre-build folder. So you can add in a reference, and you can pull in a pre-built section of the map, is basically what that is. I don't ever use that section. I know that in SnowRunner, this is really more used a lot of, because there's a lot of like cool like pre-built areas like towns and stuff. So, but in Mudrunner and SnowRunner, it's not really used very much. It's underutilized, I guess. But trucks is trucks, like where you want to spawn like a truck. It's not a mod truck, by the way. This is just a regular in-game truck, but you have to have in-game trucks to give yourself slots on your map. So if you want to have like a map that has like a couple of slots for truck options, you'll want to add a couple of like regular trucks, and then when you're actually in the game, you can fill them in with a mod. So, and routes. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what routes is. I don't think I've ever used routes. And I'm not a big log maker. Maybe that's why. Logging maker. I don't make logging maps. I'm going to try my hand at making logging maps, but I don't know. Maybe that has to do with those. But I don't ever use routes. So, anyway. But let's make this map actually look like something right now. Because right now we've just been staring at this dirt. Let me check my time. Oh, we're good. So, I was going to explain this real quick too. Water, this is not what you're thinking. Like, this is not how you add water into the map and like raise the water level. That is all done by rivers. Rivers is how you put water in the game. So if you just want to make a tiny puddle, you have to add a river. If you want to make a river across the map, you got to add a river. Water, on the other hand, controls the flow of the speed of the water and the foam that you see on top, like the water, like Russian rapids look, basically. And the value works the same kind of way as like the size of it, and then the more to the right is the more speed it'll have, to the left is less speed. And that allows you to add like the Russian current. So if you're driving into water, it'll start dragging your truck. If it's just deep enough, it'll drag your truck so that it kind of drags it down the current. And then foam is the amount of foam that the water generates. And like I said, auto fade is to auto fade, and randomize is to randomize. So, and I'll be continuing and explaining some of these a little bit more as we work. So, but first thing I like to do is change this dirt. I do not like looking at dirt unless you are going to make a desert map. Dirt would be great. So, just haven't created a dirt map ever, so don't ever use dirt. And I know the Moab level is out there. It's all probably just dirt, this dirt, with just plants and like rocks, basically rock structures, which is a really cool thing. You could probably do a beach or something like that this way as well. But I typically change the grass to like a grassy area. And that can be done by materials. So start off with material. And it's really strange how the game works, or the editor works. And picking your material and getting material to work. Um, for some reason, it wants you to reverse these items. I don't know why. It wants the grass to be dirt and the dirt to be grass for some reason. Um, and it just does that. By the way, you're going to see some items in some of mine that you're not going to see uh, in yours normally, um, because these are custom made materials that I've made or somebody else has made that I've imported into my game. So like for the Rockies, I actually built this terrain. Um, so, um, you know, typically you're just going to have like a couple of pre-standard ones, I believe. It's like, I can't remember exactly which all one. You get like concrete, dirt, beach. I don't think you get some of these. You get forest grass, moss, um, rock slope one. No, you get rock slope. Um, US concrete, I believe. Some other things. I don't know. Mine's off, like I said, because I have some extras added in there. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to make the grass dirt, and you want to make the dirt grass. And what that does to your map is it gives you grass everywhere on your map. Okay? So, and if you wanted a dirt map, and just change it back again. So, um, cool. Cool beans. Alright. Next thing I like to do is when I start my maps is I will put down a model, basically. No, sorry. I will pick where I want my garage. For us, you know, and where you put your garage matters too, because you don't want it like up in the air, um, all over the place, all crazy funky like. Um, so, but anyway, just be careful where you put your garage. You don't want to put it up on a hill and like you drive off the side and like fall off somewhere. You want to try to make it real. Um, so in order to do that, I like to typically add a locator first, and then you just hit add locator. You can right click out here, you can hit add a locator, you can go over here, you can click add locator. Alright. What you'll get is you'll get something like this, and you're like, what is this thing? It's not much yet, but what you got is you got some options over here. You want to set what kind of option you want it to be, the locator. You can do garage, fuel station, log station, lumber mill, launch point, or random truck. And these are little items that you can kind of just throw out there. But typically you want a single garage and a fuel station. So for this one, we're going to do garage, and you want to kind of make it realistic size, by the way. A 20 by 20 is huge, so that's a big old garage. I typically do a 15 by 15. You're more than welcome to do whatever you feel like. I try to keep mine realistic, but that's typically what I do. 15 by 15. And once you click off of it, you got a garage. So, if you want to move it, You can click on locators, you can go garage, you can move it around like this. So you can move it around. And you'll see that I can only move this one in 2 ways, basically. So, that puts us a garage. And I want to have my garage. By the way, rolling out on the mouse is how you move out and in. Right click will do your options. Always have options. Um, so, and left click will move it around, basically. So, I'm gonna put my garage. I don't know. Typically, just stick it there for now, like that. But you're like, man, this is not really a garage. That is because we hadn't added the model behind the garage, basically. Once again, you're going to see some extra stuff at the top of my model list here. This is typically where most custom models are going to sit, because whenever you make them, I would rather see them first. But the standard models start right here at Barn. So you would see your standard models down here. These will be your standard models. So anything you want to add down here, except for the bear and the mushroom, that's my stuff. But you'll have a bunch of items down here that you can go through and pick from, basically. But I'm specifically looking for a garage. And you got a couple of different options on the garage. You can do a red one, you can do regular old garage. I use the US garage all the time. That's the Russian garage. US garage, you can do a red one, you can do a white one, or and these are lumber mills too, for logging as well. Sorry, I was looking at them. So anyway, we're after a garage, so we'll just click OK. And you'll see that I get a model. It's pretty huge compared to my locator pad, because like I said, the game size is a little bit different here. And I don't like that view. I like to get mine where the gas station's out here. And get this sorted like that. Yep. There we go. Something like that. And the next thing I like to do is I like to make sure that my garage is not floating above the ground, because it can float above the ground. So, and it is invisible inside of there. So, try not to let your garage hover above the ground. If you got to move it up and down, make sure to move it up and down. Hide it underneath the ground a little bit. It's even better. So, same thing with your garage pad. You want to make sure that the land is flat underneath it, so that when you spawn, you're not like spawned on some kind of like halfway terrain hill or something like that. So, yeah, basically we have garage, got our locator. Let's add another locator real quick. So, let's add this little locator over here. And I need this locator to be a fueling station. And I typically make my fueling stations a 5 area, because that's pretty big. You can honestly do a 3x3, but I do a 5x5. So, which is neat. But I like to throw it up here. That's actually kind of cool. Now it looks like you're getting gas. Maybe move it out right there. And then I'm going to show you a cool little trick. Sometimes I'll duplicate stuff. So these options in here, we can go over these real quick, I guess. And oop, we're running over. So I'll go over these options and we'll call it for now. And we'll pick up on video too. Or video 3 actually. Anyway, here it is on this menu. You got fly to. Fly to is going to let us locate this item that I'm looking at. Delete, it's delete. Duplicate is duplicate. And then usually after this is any kind of like options that I'm working on. Will be right here under this little box, like line separators. And then everything underneath this is going to be probably always the same. It's going to let you basically add anything that's over here, except for these last two top options right here, or 3 options: rebuild terrain, rebuild section, or rebuild visible. I want to explain to you about the importance of these real quick. Rebuild terrain is a massive thing. Constantly rebuild the terrain every time you do major changes. Because this will fix the little rips in your map, and you'll see the rips here in a little bit when we start doing some geometry work. But this fixes a lot of issues, man. Rebuild terrain's a big section, big thing, honestly. So like here in a second, I'm literally going to rebuild the terrain, and we're going to save this map, and we're going to continue from there. But you'll see me rebuild terrain constantly, man. And it's just something to keep your map like good and clean throughout the whole process, and you don't have any issues when you actually publish it, just because you rebuild the terrain quite often. The other option is rebuild selection. Sometimes I use this like if I'm only wanting to rebuild like a certain area that I'm working in and I don't want to have to wait for the whole map to reload, I'll rebuild the selection. But this is not often, because this can cause you issues, because if you only rebuild that selection, like the rest of your map might have issues. So rebuild terrain does everything, rebuild selection does what you're working on. And that means the terrain block, this little red thing that I'm working on. And rebuild visible is everything that I can see around this window pane. So like it tries to rebuild like the lying rand around you. So just be careful with these. Like really just try to rebuild terrain quite often. And then the rest of these are just add whatever you need to add. So you don't have to go over here, click add, blah, blah, blah. So right now I want to duplicate this real quick. And locators is kind of funky. This is one of those little glitches that I want to tell you about. Normally, like on a model, if I click on a model, whether it be in-game or if I go models and I click on one, I can move it around. On a locator, if I click on these locators, I'm not going to get nothing. And that is because you have to go to locator and you have to click on it to move it. See? So, I want to move it. But, and that also let me select the locator as well, because right now I can't do anything to it, you see. But if I come over here, I'll get my options to duplicate it. So, and I want to duplicate this, and I just want to move it over here to this side so that I got a fuel station on each side. So you can drive in underneath side. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the train. It's going to do its thing. It's going to save everything, basically. Make sure that it's all good looking. And we're going to come up here and we're going to click save. So what this done is this basically is save my map. And it's ready to be closed for us. So, and you can see that it saved the STG file and it saved the XML file. And then the location. So, I'm out of time, guys, so I'm going to stop the video here. And we'll go to part 3.